hear people in the background talking. So I don't know if someone else is in an office setting where there are people in the background.
There's a meeting going on right next door. I'll mute.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I just wanted someone to know in case they were saying something we did not need to hear, proprietary or something.
I just spoke to Tom. He just needs to log in, so I'll send that to him and he should be able to climb on in just a few minutes.
Okay.
While we're waiting, I'll address what we were just talking about a little bit. I sent this around to everybody, just some kind of guidelines. Ground rules is not exactly right, but it's more like best practices. I think we've all been learning a lot about this new technology and how we get along with it, and vice versa. And these are just a few of the things that, in having done more than a handful of these, I've discovered, and those first two we're just talking about are kind of, cutting down the background noise that we've got. When you use a headset, it cuts out that echo, cuts out that feedback. If you'll mute, unless you're speaking, that's helpful. It's another thing we got to remember, to unmute ourselves when we're talking. But it's like we just discovered, there's a lot going on, regardless of quarantine, whether it's cats or kids or coworkers. But it helps to kind of cut down the ambient noise back there. And some of these others, Lynn, you were talking about, applause. So in American Sign Language, so now you speak another language, that's applause. And I find that with the video, far too many of us, and all of us, kind of sit back like, super still, like it's a mugshot. I tend to use my hands a little bit more. I think I've worked with most of you somewhere over the last 5 years with the EDA, and I like to move around a little bit. So utilizing the video for things just to check in is always a good piece. We'll have, it looks like 12 or 13 people on the line. When you're done talking, if you would just say, "I'm done," that helps other people to know it's that the lines are open and they can now speak. And feel free to use this little graphic, because it's I find it pretty useful for people as we're having to do more and more of these, because this is what we've got. And I'll go ahead and just kind of kick off our introductions with the artist from that, who is Ayumi Bennett. So Ayumi is on my screen. She's up in the top left corner. But Ayumi, just introduce yourself and we'll kick it off.
Hi, I'm Ayumi Bennett. I work with Jody, and I am a scribe. Does that work? I also have a 21-month-old who is not in my room right
now. Who's adorable, I'll just say. And Dwayne, you're talking about doing whiteboard messages. What I've learned in this is that I personally cannot sort of facilitate a meeting and capture the graphics the way that you all have gotten used to the last few years of us having done this. So Ayumi has come along and been a great addition to my team, which means I now have a team of two to kind of be there and capture things visually, because like you all have experienced, it's always good to have a record that's more than just our memories and the words that we're speaking. So Ayumi's going to be tracking our conversation today as we're going through this, and we'll check in occasionally just to kind of make sure that we're capturing what we need to, and see what kind of insights emerge from the visuals that are there. For those of you that don't know, I'm Jody Lentz. I'm a facilitator based in Nashville. I've done this work professionally for about 15 years, and all my life, according to people I grew up with, but finally figured out how to get paid for it. I was looking back in my files, and we've actually done this for the last 5 years. I think we skipped 1 year in there because things were going so well, James. We just didn't need to pick up anything new. But I'm thrilled to be back with you guys. It sounds like things are going amazingly well. I'll knock wood in there. But let's kind of go around the horn and introduce everybody as we're going around. Like you said, Rosemary, not everybody knows each other because of the different boards and everything, but I bet they all know you. So Rosemary, why don't you start?
Rosemary, you probably want to unmute yourself when you're talking.
Thank you. I'm with the Economic Development Agency, Rosemary Bates. I did want to tell you, Jody, that the way this meeting was set up, there is no text chat function.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to add a comment is going to have to raise their hand and flag Jody down. And but welcome everybody. I'm so excited to see everybody. I'm waiting for in person though. I miss everybody.
Tim Hertel, why don't you I'm kind of going on the order of what's showing up on my screen. I never know if everybody sees the same order of photos that I do up here, but Tim, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do and what you're looking forward to?
Sure. Tim Hurdle, been in Gallatin for coming up on 4 years now. Previous owner of a company that we had moved here and sold my equity at the end of last year. Had planned on acquiring something else by now, but obviously with COVID and everything that's going on, that's changed some things, but I think is going to create some opportunity as well, and looking at getting something new going by the end of the year and moving forward from there.
Tim is on our Economic Development Agency board. So when you're going around, folks, if you tell everybody which board you're on, that'd be Babu.
So next on my hit list is the inimitable James Fenton. Say hi to the folks, James.
Good morning, everyone. I'm truly excited for today. As I sent out yesterday, we've had a really spectacular year, but it's putting us in a position to accomplish probably more than we know that we can. So I'm looking forward today, and let's set the bar high as we go through this, please. Thank you.
Great. Larry Wise, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks a lot, Jody. Larry Wise, I'm with the Economic Development Agency, and I'm a resident of Gallatin just 5 years, but really enjoy it here and enjoy being part of this group.
Terrific. Thank you. Jeannie Gregory, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jeannie Gregory. I'm a State Farm agent in Gallatin for 28 years and a member of the EDA board for probably the last 4 to 5 years. And happy to be here this morning. This is always an enjoyable meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Great. Glad you're here, Jeannie. Dwayne, how are you today?
Good morning. Glad to be here. Dwayne Scott on the Gallatin Economic Development Board. Born and raised right here in good old gracious and growing Gallatin. So glad to be on the board here and being part of this strategic plan. Been on the board about 4 or 5 years, about the same time Jenny, I believe. So glad to be a part. Looking forward to it. I have one question. Does that mean that Miss Bennett is she going to do sketches? Are we going to get to see sketches today?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Okay. Okay.
Dwayne, how long have you worked with me? There will be graphics. There will be graphics. I promise. So, got to have an artifact. Alan Ramsey, what's up?
Good morning, everyone. Alan Ramsey. I'm the chairman of the Industrial Development Board. I've been a part of the development board for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, time flies. But I am COO with the Reagan Smith Associates in Nashville, Tennessee. We're a surveying and engineering firm, but excited to be a part of the discussion and look forward to it.
Terrific. Thank you. Lynn Asante and friend there behind you.
Good morning, everyone. Len Asante. I am also on the Industrial Development Board with Alan. I think I've been on the board about a year, I'm gonna say. Rosemary would probably know better. Day job is I teach at Volunteer State Community College. And since March, my office has been right here. So, and behind me is my senior emotional support animal, who goes by Sophie. There's another one wandering around here. You might put in a cameo at a later time. My first meeting of this group was last year, and Jody did a great job. So I'm looking forward to today.
Perfect. Next on my hit list is only listed as iPad, and I'm afraid that my memory is not good enough to put a name with that face.
I think by process of elimination, that's me. So I'm Richie Harville. I'm a banker and lifelong resident of Gallatin. I'm on the Gallatin EDA board as well, and just been really exciting to see all the growth that's come to Gallatin the past several years. And glad to be on this board and to look at the growth that's on the pipeline to come the next several years. Glad to be here.
Terrific. Thank you. Jasmine Grimm, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Jasmine Grimm. I'm our existing industries manager in economic development, and I am excited to figure out what this new normal looks like for our office. I think there will be some changes in our approach to different methodologies and what we're doing, so I'm excited to venture on that.
Us too. I think we're all, I've given up on normal. I'm calling it the new now, because it seems like there's something new that unfolds every day. So I'm glad you're back. How long have you been back at work?
Last week was my first week back, so this is my second week, and I'm already feeling a lot better than last week.
Good. I was going to say, I hope you shoveled out all of the emails and phone calls and 1,000 memos from James. So
yeah, they did a good job catching me up.
Good. PJ, good morning.
Good morning. I'm PJ Davis. I'm Executive Director of the Gallatin Shalom Zone, and we are a community resource center here in Gallatin. And I am on the Industrial Development Board, and just so pleased to be here. And Jody, see your smiling face again.
Thanks, PJ.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Next on the hit list is Mr. Tom Neal.
I'm Tom Neal. I'm born on East Main Street in Gallatin a few years ago, and after graduating from Tech, there was no economic development board in Gallatin at the time. I'm a member of the board now. So I wandered around the U.S. for 40 years and was president of Mr. Buffett's company up in Pennsylvania, one of his companies, and retired about 20 years ago, moved back home to Gallatin, was born on East Main Street. So I'm a true native of Gallatin, and I'm sitting on my patio and enjoying this fine, fresh, unusual August morning.
Nice day.
Amen to that. I can kind of get used to this weather, but then it would be like San Diego, where it was always the same, no matter what time of year we're in. So Angie Hubbard, good morning.
Good morning. I am actually with the Greater Nashville Regional Council. I am in my full-time job. I do regional economic development planning for the 13-county Middle Tennessee area. But specifically, I provide support by contract to the IDB and the Health and Education Housing Facilities Board. And I am here today to strictly observe.
Thanks for being here. I miss seeing Michael and you guys on the regular. So hopefully we'll get that going again. So let's see, hiding behind the Gallatin shield is Jeff Henschel, who's been helping Rosemary and the team kind of make sure that the the technology works there. I guess Ryan Kleinert is our last member of the hit parade today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Kleinert. I grew up here, went to high school here. I run a heavy civil construction company based out of Gallatin, and I'm on the Industrial Development Board for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, I think. So.
All right, glad y'all are here today. A little bit about our agenda. We've got sort of three sections of the work. We're going to do a little bit of review of kind of what the last year has been, take a look at the plan and the progress, and just kind of recap a little bit about where we've been. We'll kind of move into the second part and talk a little bit about the current state. I think if y'all are like most people I talk to, and I know Jeannie for sure, tired of talking about COVID, but I think its impact on economic development is pretty broad and deep, and to want to just have a conversation around that about kind of what's unfolding as well. And then at the last part, we're going to really run through what the priorities are for the year based on kind of what we've done up to that point. I want to walk away today with some idea of direction for the team for the next year. We're going to take breaks in between all those sections. I was telling Rosemary earlier, I can't look into the screen for more than 45 minutes or an hour before my eyes start bugging out. So I'm a big fan of frequent breaks in this. So, and again, when you're talking, go off mute. When you're not talking, go on mute. If you've got to step away, switch your video off, and we'll catch you up, or not, as we go through it. I think that there's a lot to talk about, but it's a pretty focused gateway that we've got to work through on this. So with that in mind, I'm going to call up last year's plan and just kind of talk through that a little bit as we're going through it. So the first thing you see is last year's big picture, kind of what we worked on. And again, Ayumi is going to capture a little bit of our conversation today, or as much of our conversation as we can, so that you will have an artifact like this kind of going forward into the next year. One of the things that we always look at in these plans are the strategic commitments, and these are kind of the priorities for the year ahead, knowing that there's no shortage of work anyway, but kind of where you're going to put your focus. And you see here the three things that we focused on a little bit for the last year, and just kind of want to pick up the conversation with that around, how did we do across these three things? So purchasing more land and telling our story better and developing the workforce is really where we landed. Before we dig into that, though, James, I do want to kind of turn it over to you and Jeannie to kind of give a little recap of kind of your perception of the last year. Where are things now? We've talked on the phone, but you may have had these conversations, but I'd like for everybody to kind of hear the same story at the same time. So if you all wouldn't mind, James, I'll start with you and just kind of give your summary of how things are, the state of the EDA.
Thank you, Jody. It's been an incredible year, truly an incredible year. I drove through the industrial park this morning, and we've got land being torn up everywhere. We got buildings going vertical, and it's just it's almost as if really the pandemic did not hit here. It's just incredible. I was looking at building permits. The city issued $24 million in building permits in June and $27 million in July of building permits. It just has not slowed down and just continued to go. As we go and look at the strategic plan, we were talking about this yesterday amongst ourselves, and I feel like we've kind of missed on almost all those points. We've gotten some of it done, but we've just been so incredibly busy doing what we're doing that it's been difficult for us to pull that out and stare at it. I'm hoping that our conversation today will allow us to refocus our energies. I think things are starting to slow down maybe in our office here in a month or two, and we might have time for us to really start focusing on some of those things. But it truly it's just been 100 miles an hour the entire year. We have just been so blessed, so fortunate. And let me tell you, without Rosemary, without Jasmine, without the entire city here, this wouldn't have happened. Okay, this has not been easy, not at all. But we have a team, and we are all grateful for the support we get from these two boards. We couldn't do it without you, and we certainly couldn't do it without this. So just hang on, folks. It's keeping on going. Jeannie, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. And James, I certainly agree with you. I also feel like the pandemic kind of missed us. We came through 2019 with such strong momentum that when the conversation about slowing down, closing up shop, everybody staying at home, even though that went on for about a month or so, I think it's amazing that we continue to see restaurants opening up in the midst of only 50% capacity, and we probably had 4 or 5 new restaurants that opened up. On my drive into the work each day, I see new housing starts, incredible. Just right next door, there's a huge daycare center going in next door to me here at my office. I think that we probably have yet another opportunity, if you want to call opportunity, for population growth with the new 34% tax hike that Davidson County and Metro has, is going to push a lot of people out into some outlying areas. So we got a lot to get prepared for. I told Jody when we talked, I think we're so fortunate here in Middle Tennessee because I have agent friends across the country whose communities have really suffered as a result of this. But I laugh at somebody who is, there's a lot of people now who are refinancing their house to put in a pool or a backdoor oasis because they're not traveling nearly as much as they were. So what I'm finding is that people are still employed in this community. People are still making a living. They're buying boats, they're buying toys, they're putting in pools. There are no hot tubs to be found at Pool and Spa Depot because everybody is still working and taking the opportunity to maybe get a little closer to home and love up their family a little bit more. So I do think that we're in a great position for this year, and I don't really see that slowing down in the Middle Tennessee area.
That's great. I love those little vignettes that kind of show how things are going. I think no hot tubs at Pool and Spa Depot is a pretty good little indicator, kind of a signal that how things are going out there. Or people just want to feather their nest a little bit more since they're spending more time in it. So either way, I think those are good. Those are good indicators. So I want to just kind of open up the floor to folks to chime in about that. So again, we had, there were 3 things that we targeted for last year. And to your point, James, just because of all the work that was going on, that we have not been able to really get at these 3 things. But I am curious to kind of hear from the board about where you guys stand on these 3 things and kind of your perception of what the EDA has been working on and how things are going generally. So this is the free range conversation part of the show. So y'all dive in when you feel led.
Jody, can I maybe add a couple of things before we start this open discussion? Number one, purchasing more land. That has been a constant conversation in our office. I mean, Rosemary says something every day. We need to buy more land, and finding it out there is really difficult right now. We do have a couple opportunities. Hopefully, we'll talk about that. To tell our story better, last year we came out of here saying we need to hire a PR firm. That was in the works, and then the COVID budget, we had to remove the money for that. We have hired somebody here part-time. I think we have an opportunity maybe over the next little bit for us to handle some of that in-house, and we can talk about that. Developing the workforce, we did make some gains there. We did facilitate the project between Vol State and Nashville Technology County on the Apprentice TN program. We have had a cohort of Apprentice TN come through the Gallatin area. We've been working closely with Vol State, and also Jasmine has done a spectacular job of getting us into the high schools and continuing those conversations there. So I think we've done a fairly good deal there. But that's my quick take on our 3 goals there.
Terrific. So I'll open up the floor for board folks to chime in on what's going on. I am curious about the purchase more land, because like you said, James, this has been what I would term an evergreen initiative for maybe every year that we've talked about this. And just kind of curious where the what are the levers that we've got to flip to make that happen. And in just my conversations with y'all, it seems like the pool of available land is shrinking, and is it something that we need to make this a more urgent thing to put on the agenda? I'm done.
Jody, I'll chime in because James invoked my name about how I mention this almost every day, which is true, because having been in this office for 5 years, I've come to understand how important it is for the city to own land and be able to take out that intermediary from the equation in terms of timeline and meeting the deadlines of the prospects. As you know, we've been working on a project for a very long time, and if we owned any of that land, that timeline probably would have been shortened, possibly, but cut in half. So there are some people who might argue that, leave it to the private property owner, but it just takes out the ability for us to turn a project quickly. And so I'm just wanting to throw that. That's why I see us, we've got 30 acres left that we own. We have a couple of properties that are zoned industrial that we don't own, and we're at the mercy of whatever the asking price is on those, and having to cobble together meetings and conversations. So there are some ideas. We need some more input on what direction, whether it's industrial or planned business park, or do we even segue into buying property to promote for corporate headquarters?
Thanks for this is Mary. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I know with the property, the last discussion that I remember, James, that we were having was off of the 109, possible a spot over there, and that we had some discussion about. Was that the Bowles property? But is that still on the radar as a potential spot of land to have a piece there, or where did that end up?
Yes, actually, last year when we had the conversation regarding that property, it was being marketed. And Stan Hardaway was in the office. We were talking to him about the possibility of us getting some of that land at a very good price, so that if we brought a company in, we could help get the infrastructure put in. As it turns out, that is now being taken down by a developer. He's taken down the entire piece of land over there. He has been in our office, or we've Zoomed with him a couple of times, and we were able to let him know that we do have to have a business park out there. That's how we got money to put that road in. So he's come back with some good bubble plans at this point in time. We've only really had 2 good conversations with him. I don't feel like I've really developed a strong enough relationship yet so that I can ask him for a good deal and, you know, let us move forward with that. But yes, that is one of the pieces that's still on the table.
And Jody, I think that brings up a kind of similar related point. It's not just the availability of land, it's the availability of different types of land for different purposes. You know, we're talking about both Class A office space and we're talking about industrial space, and those are in different parts of town and different types of land. And so it's not just a quantity issue, it's sort of a diversity of different types of land issue as well.
Good point.
Hello. Okay, bye. Yeah.
And one of the conversations obviously is about the cost on this. In the last year, we've sold acreage to Archer Data Centers. They paid us just shy of $1 million. We just collected $420,000 from DNS Industries out there. So ostensibly, we've got close to $1.4 million that, you know, we have brought back to the city. That I think is a conversation worth having with City Council. I do know that with COVID budget and all that stuff that's going on, you know, it might be a little different conversation than it would have been a year ago. But again, as it's been mentioned, all the revenues are still coming into this city. Our sales tax collection, actually, this last month, the report came in was higher than it's ever been. It was like the 4th highest we've ever had. So all of those things continue to help us. But you know, funding this is a part of it. I think if we're able to move forward, I think part of it, you know, if we can come up with a big chunk of money to start the process, and the Industrial Development Board would have the ability to help out with some payments and that kind of stuff also, I think that might be a conversation that would make it work better for us.
I have a
All
couple.
right, so go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Where would the funds come from to purchase the properties if we find some that are available? And is there any land adjacent to the present building, a park, business park?
Again, the 1.4 million that I was talking about would have to come from the general fund, but that's money that we've put into it in the last 12 months. As far
we
as
have to get approval of the council to use that money.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. And as far as land adjacent to the industrial park, no, that's gone. That's all Project Woolhawk. They took down the 800 acres.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in that area. The city is going through a comprehensive land use planning session right now. And so been talking with the head of planning about finding areas in the city that we might be able to move towards. But I think that's what today I'm hoping that we can kind of decide to Len's point, are we going to look for more industrial? Is that something we still continue to work on here? Or do we let that one kind of evolve naturally? And then we concentrate on a different type. The property up on the Bowles farm that you asked about, Dwayne, speaking with the developer, because of the way that looks like it will be developed, there will have to be some very strict covenants as to what kind of a business would go in there. It really would be a planned business park as opposed to light industrial. I think we have to rewrite some of our codes and actually put some new guidelines in there. We do have some areas down by the water that are still available that we should look at for that corporate. We've got land on Greenlee on both sides of 386. And there's a lot of places out there. I think we just kind of need as a body here to determine exactly what direction you'd like this office to go. Thank you.
I thought we kind of decided that corporate headquarters would be one of our objectives, with getting folks to relocate from other areas to Gallatin. I think it's like having seed money. Once you get one or two, and then others might follow, but getting somebody to lead the way seems to be a kind of a high hurdle. We've got to find somebody, and I don't know how you seek out people who are looking for corporate headquarters. And I suppose the airport is a drawing item now, and since we can handle bigger aircraft, and you don't have to fly into Nashville, and also the living accommodations are great here, and our school systems are great. We just have a lot to offer. But and relocating corporate offices, I don't know exactly how you seek out and find people that are looking.
You sound like you're doing my job. Thank you.
That's a hell of a marketing plan he just threw out there, didn't he?
You're right, and I know that there's been conversation during this COVID that offices are gone for good. Everybody's going to work from home. But as you listen to, Jamie Diamondhead and, some of these larger folks that are saying, we're being successful right now because of those relationships that we developed early on. And talking with construction firms, everybody's going to need to get back in touch with people. He was telling me nobody's going to write their company a check for $50 million to put up a building if they haven't developed a relationship. So there is going to be a need for us coming back together. I think a week from now, I think, Tom, we're going to have our first name that will help us go out and attract. And
great.
It's going to be on the West Coast. That's, people are moving out of those densely populated areas. They are moving out of high taxes. You just read California, they just are talking about putting a tax on high income earners that could be up to 54% of their income, depending on how much money they make. So those kind of decisions are starting to make people want to move. And I think that's our opportunity. Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to interject here, Jody. You may have noticed, but I wanted to welcome Derek Jackson to our strategic planning session. He was able to join us. He popped up while y'all were talking. Hey, Derek.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Derek, we've got probably a couple of new people on here that you may not be familiar with. Tim Hurdle is on the Economic Development Agency Board of Directors. You're familiar with all your IDB partners, and I'm pretty sure you probably know Richie Harville, banker. So through something, I'm sure you've come across Richie, but those are the two newest EDA board members. So welcome to our planning session today.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hey, I wanted to throw in that I just wanted to clap when Tom was talking about corporate office space, because James, again, hears that from me all the time. And I want to go back to something Jeannie said too, a combination of what James just said. Some of these states imposing more taxes, Nashville's tax hike, our proximity to Nashville, the fact that going south of Nashville is more and more expensive and less space. There are also a couple of locations. There is a development going in off of 386 in Big Station. And in their preliminary master development plan, they have set aside a chunk of property that they are calling hotel/offices, and it would front or face or be right along 386 as you're going out of town. It's at that corner of 386 and Big Station across from where the Sumner Station is. And then this chunk of property on 109 North, if they maintain the plan that they shared with us, there's a corner of 109 and the New Hatton Track Road. There's about 9 acres there. There's got a little creek going behind it. But that's also something that could be developed as office space. Again, though, it's really more, hopefully more of you will chime in about, do we pursue that above everything else? Do we only look at purchasing or pursuing land only for that? Do we also, or as a second tier, develop a more specific idea for a planned business park? And maybe even create some new zoning definitions and descriptions to flush that out, like James said, in the least impactful way, where you wouldn't mind having a neighborhood next to it, or certainly a nice shopping center next to it. So I'll stop now because I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Well, I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive, Rosemary. I mean, I think, I don't know, I guess I'm speaking for you guys in the office more than I should be, but I think it's possible to do more than one thing at a time. And I think those two things kind of mesh to a certain extent, right? And we had talked about in our board, in our sessions last year, I mean, at this point, variety is the spice of life, right? And with Archer here and with Wilhawk here, we're going to be on more people's radar for different things than we were 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, really. So I think it's probably a reasonable approach to look at what you're talking about, because I think we have a better chance of attracting those kinds of occupants than we would have had in the past. But again, it comes down to actually having the land. So I think, to me, it makes sense to, number one, be looking to buy land, and then number two, secondly, looking to diversify what goes on that land at the same time.
James and Rosemary, I guess following Lynn there, and going back to your question on what the direction, is it to continue to look at industrial type clients, or is it changing and going to office? I would think and agree with Lynn that I think there's a goal to do both. I think if you just shut down industrial, say we don't want more of that, that's probably not great for the overall economy of Gallatin. But again, land's an important piece of it. Anytime you're wanting to do any sort of industrial type park, if you rely simply on the market to do that, many residents throughout, if it's in anybody's backyard, they're going to fight that. So it seems to need to take more of a city EDA, IDB approach of holistic sort of master plan and a larger piece of property. But the corporate office piece of it, that's something that if we don't buy land and set aside that we're holding that, which is probably a longer term hold, then it's either going to get developed for residential or small commercial or some other use, because that's something that I think we've got to be very specific about. We've got to buy the land. We've got to throw incentives, because as Tom mentioned, to getting that first one is somebody saying, hey, I'm willing to go north as opposed to south of Nashville. And, hopefully getting that, and then others saying, oh, okay, well, that is an option for our corporate headquarters. But I think it's going to take a very specific, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to hold it for that specific reason.
I think we decided already we're not looking for manufacturing that's labor intensive and low pay. We've gone beyond that. And so we're not in that business or warehousing business. I don't think we decided last year that the labor wasn't available to fund those kinds of operations. And I suppose going forward, we're still looking at that for higher pay. And if we're interested in manufacturing jobs, they would be more skilled and higher paying industries than what we've been accustomed to in the past. So we've turned that corner, and fortunately so. And perhaps the 2 data centers that we've recently acquired will bring interest from others, not necessarily data centers, but other industries that are interested in higher tech jobs. And certainly Ball State's been very cooperative in helping to welcome and train people for higher and paying jobs. So we're very fortunate in that regard. I assume we're still not interested in just acquiring jobs just to have jobs.
You're very right there, Tom. One of the things, because we only have 30 acres left in our industrial park, we've raised the price of it. And unless a company has starting wages, not average, but starting wages of at least $18 an hour, they don't get to look at that piece of property anymore. So that's kind of how we put a filter on the companies that we're talking to.
I have a question, James, for you. Can you tell me what is, I'm interested in the trends, the nationwide trends, and also from an economic standpoint for the city and the county. What are the trends right now?
What I'm seeing nationwide is particularly in the rural areas, there's a great deal of struggle going on out there. The fact that we have so much going on here is incredibly, it's just very, very different than everything else that's going on out there. As a general rule, economic development agencies are, for the most part, still pursuing the industrial development, because that's kind of how they've been set up. There are unique places like Williamson County, where they've established themselves in a different fashion. But other than unique little places like that, it truly is continuing just to be chasing that manufacturing. As far as
thank you. I've always thought that in any business, it's very important, and it's also financially to have a niche focus. And we do have a niche focus. You're kind of going that way. So, I would think we need to continue that way, whether it's, similar to what you've recruited or corporate offices or, and to have that focus and to be able to also know what we don't want, which Tom said, we know what we don't want, but this is kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but if we don't have the land, like everyone has said, in our coffers, we can't do anything. And I think that's a real pretty package with a nice bow on top for us to have property and for it to be ready. So that's my 2 cents.
James, I recently participated, and I guess a lot of people did, in a survey that by the city of what of kind of a land use plan, and it was mainly a bunch of photos. Would you prefer this kind of a housing situation or that kind of a housing situation, which I guess would give some guidance to the city, but that has a lot to do with the land use and how much land is required. If it's single family dwellings with acre lots or 2 acre lots or 5 acre lots, as opposed to a number of apartments, that certainly affects us in many ways, because there's only so much land available, and the more you use for nicer homes on larger lots, the less is available for whatever the use is. And I don't know if the results of that survey have been revealed yet or not, and I guess that will go to the city council. I'm not sure. The city conducted the survey, but I'm not sure if they're through with it yet.
Rosemary?
That survey is open at least through next week. As of Monday, I think we gotten close to 700 responses. That this is not a scientific statistical survey, plus or minus a degree of a difference, but that is open through next week, and then it is going to be shared. The results are going to be shared with the public and the Planning Commission and the City Council. I think realistically, we're looking at the city being end of the year before it actually adopts, takes a final vote on the comprehensive development plan. But that's good, because after this strategic planning meeting and we have some specific direction like we've had in the past, what we're going to do is we make sure that your vision and our strategic plan is incorporated into that comprehensive development plan, so that if we know that we want a certain area or certain properties to be designated corporate offices, for example, we can put that on a map, and when people come in and ask for rezoning or changes of use, we can go, or the Planning Commission and the City Council can go, no, that's set aside for a corporate office, so we're not going to give it to you for residential. Not that that always works, but it's good timing that we're having this meeting today to incorporate it into exactly what you're talking about.
One thing I'm very, very interested in, I grew up in an area that was lake. There were all lakes. And so I'm very interested in us trying to look at and develop whatever waterfront we have, because we have something very few people nationwide have. And that is a huge draw. You all know that the economic impact of that is greater, water. And if we don't get whatever property that is, it's going to be gone. And you've seen that over at Foxland, what has happened along the lake. So that's something I'm very interested in. And I think that lakefront property or near the lake or view of the lake is very, for us, it would behoove us, even though it might cost more on the front end. I think that that's something we could definitely promote.
Yeah, the idea of lakefront or lake view corporate office space, man, I would think that would sell itself. I mean, that is, like PJ said, that is really unique. And I want to plug the survey that Tom and Rosemary mentioned. If you haven't taken it, take it, because a lot of the images that you had the opportunity to comment on in the survey were images of things that I think we're talking about in this conversation right here. I mean, a lot of it, there were pictures of, what would be Class A office space, and the question is, do you think something like this, fits in Gallatin? And, hopefully we're seeing some yes answers there. I know that's how I answered it, because like I said, I think variety is the spice of life. We need to have options for all sorts of different clients. So yeah, if we could have something like that, and if it could be near the lake, oh my God, I think whoever owned it could charge through the roof for the rent. Yeah.
Jody, would you mind if I shared my screen just for a minute?
Go right ahead.
So, waterfront property. We do have a couple of opportunities. This is the NHC facility, and this is a property right next to it. We've actually got a building that we've had put on there a virtual building, and made some videos. This is for sale. This is a spot that we can look at. LA Green owns this over here, but this is millions and millions of dollars. It's 22 acres, and I think he's asking $1 million an acre. So that clearly is out. And we've got, I'm not sure who owns this house, but these folks are here, and that we haven't approached them. So we have those kind of spots here that are available, and I would love for us to look into it. And actually down here, not only is this space available, but all this is has been earmarked for commercial development. So we have, I think we have a tremendous opportunity here. And you're right, Joe, Len, you know, if we've got waterfront, we're the only place in Middle Tennessee that has the ability to put corporate offices on the waterfront. So I think that's something we need to pursue heavily. All right, and I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you.
I think something else that we can consider is that the corporate office is shrinking. As a result of COVID, everybody has learned that the new normal may be to work at home, and so there could be some opportunity there as some of these corporate offices are looking to downsize. Maybe they're looking for somewhere to downsize, and that could be an interesting narrative to pursue as we're looking to attract them to Gallatin.
Good point.
In other words, smaller size working to our
PJ,
advantage.
you were asking about, Lynn, I think you're right. PJ had asked about trends before, and I think to kind of pull those threads together, what James was saying about, you know, there's always going to be a need for that headquarters. And Tim, like you're saying, it's going to be smaller, which I think opens up a great opportunity for a community the size of Gallatin. You know, you don't have to have a 30-story gleaming tower to accommodate the kind of headquarters that people are planning for now. I've got a client here in Nashville who was talking to him last week, and he said, well, we signed a 7-year lease 2 years ago, and he said now we feel stuck, you know, because they've sent everybody home. They've had their best quarter ever, despite everybody being out of the office. And so to your point, Tim, I think just the shift of how people are doing the business is going to shape the what of the offices that they go into. So I want to run into a quick break and let us kind of have well, I was doing it for me. My eyes need a break from all of your pretty faces for just a minute. But before we break, I want Ayumi, if you'll share what you've been working on, just to kind of I'll put you on the spot and see what your screen has, and give you guys an idea of what the visual part of this is coming together on.
Oh, wow. I love it.
She draws such better faces than me. So
I love it.
Oh, we need to keep this one.
Love it, love it.
You mean you didn't keep the other ones? What, Lynn? You're killing me.
I have them. I have them.
I love that James's character has facial hair. Because he never has facial hair.
Not used to that.
So Jody, how long? 5 minutes?
Let's take 10, and we'll reconvene at 9:45. And Ayumi, if you want to keep working, that's great. But I'd love for your visual to be up there while people are taking their breaks. So we'll see you guys back at 9:45.
All right. Thank you.
Let's see.
how you doing? Got your email about that roadside ticket that I ordered. Bring it over here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you said that sounds fine. All right, guys, just give me a call or email when it's in. Sure. 615. 512. 6297. Sounds good. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yumi, you can stop your share now. We'll get everybody back on the video. Thank you.
Larry, I've got a package of treasurer materials for you in my office whenever you feel like you want to acquire them.
I'll probably come by today.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
How's that for some instant gratification, Rosemary?
What did you just say, Jody?
I love some instant gratification.
Yeah, me too.
I'll come by today.
Yay!
Hey, Rosemary?
Yes.
I am going out of town next week and am wanting to bring a gift to the friend who I'm visiting, a Gallatin gift. Do you have anything interesting in the swag department that I might be able to grab one of?
Yeah, actually, I've got a couple of things. So why don't you buzz me after the meeting or email me or whatever you prefer to do and just let me know and I'll, we have a few things that, yeah, we have a few things, so.
Cool, cool. Excellent, thank you. I will do that. Appreciate it. Anything that holds a hot beverage would especially be appreciated.
I think we can help you out.
Okay.
So welcome back, everybody. Like most meetings that I facilitate with economic development agencies, have had a lot of talk about land. And I think there's a pretty, at least emergent consensus over where that is headed. I do want to pick up about workforce. I think the other big thing that dominates the economic development conversation these days. And James, I know did you say next week is the long awaited official announcement of your big project?
Ostensibly, yes. Oops, didn't mean to turn that off, but yes, I think that's
fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, yes. They were in town this last week, helping make a preparation for that. I'm fairly certain at this point in time that something will be happening next week that will make that clear. And along those, the workforce end of that, we have worked as long or longer on ensuring that there is a workforce for that company and others like it. Working with Ball State, they have an incredibly robust IT set of offerings, fiber, cybersecurity, programming, just a bunch of offerings there. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we put together that partnership with Nashville Technology Council and in Ball State. Yesterday, the Nashville Technology Council had about a 3-hour panel discussion, and several folks on there. I think they had close to 200 IT tech folks on there, and we actually got a couple of shout outs during that. One was for Archer Data Centers, and the other one was for the work at Ball State. So I think technology, the tech community here is starting to understand what we have. And again, with this next announcement that is coming, I think we really have an opportunity back to that tooting our own horn and getting that message out. That's one of the things we're working on. But I think along those lines, and then plus the work that Jasmine's been doing to get us in for that manufacturing end of the workforce, getting us into the high schools. We've done a fairly good job. And again, as Tom mentioned, we're going for a certain sector there. We still have help wanted signs in our industrial park out there. If you drive through the industrial sector, there are already people, even in these times, that are looking for more help out there. So that's one of the reasons why I'm excited that we are diversifying our employment opportunities here, moving more towards that technology side, because first, the pay is much better. And I think it will attract a different group, a different demographic group to the community, and keep some of that pressure off of our industrial sector.
I'll chime in a little
James,
bit.
You talked when we were talking about what the, sorry, Jasmine, I'll get you in just a second. The population growth has been on a pretty astounding track, it sounds like. So you're still attracting people to come live in Gallatin. And then any kind of workforce shift it has a few years of an arc to it, but it sounds like you guys have made the right sort of high school, higher ed to the workforce connections. Jasmine, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so as far as the shift goes, this year, I think one area that of our action steps that we really did hone in on was the workforce element. And I think a lot of people, since they know that we're heavy manufacturing and industrial here in Gallatin, don't really realize that there is a lot of opportunity in marketing and business and accounting and IT. It's kind of been the best kept secret, but it's not good at all. And so what I've tried to do when working with the high schools is letting them know about those opportunities. And what I found is that a lot of the teachers, the guidance counselors, administrators, they really didn't know the many opportunities that were available in Gallatin. And we've been working with Chase Moore, who oversees the CTE programs for Sumner County Schools. He came and spoke at our gear luncheon, and it was really beneficial. He talked about what programs they have to offer, and both the station camp, who has not really been involved. Larry Wise helped me a lot. He's on the board for the CT at station camp. Larry got station camp involved for the first time, and then we've got Gallatin High School, which is a great partner. But those principals were able to meet the HR managers, the plant managers, and some of the executives of the companies to start those conversations. So I think the conversation really has been started this year, because workforce is a wild animal. There's so many different working parts, but just getting those conversations started this year has been, we've seen a lot of fruit come from that. So that's been encouraging. And I know our high schools have been, there was this misconception that industries didn't want to be involved with high schools or Ball State, and that's just simply not the case. If anything, it's been on the school front, because they've not really been great at communicating with the industries. So kind of coming in and helping serve as the mediator with that has been really good this year.
Well, and as I recall, part of the tell your story commitment was about how do we tell the story about what's happening in schools to industry and vice versa. And particularly, like you said, the principals and the teachers being aware of what all is out there and how do you connect your curricula to the workforce. And I think that's awesome. Love to hear that.
Yeah, we're talking about, public relations and getting our message out. I think it's important to remember that internal audiences are just as important as external audiences at this point. Like Jasmine said, this group doesn't even know what that group has to offer, and people don't know what's going on in their own community. And so I think whenever we do have the money to hire a PR firm, they're going to have their work cut out for them.
Lynn, may I take?
Lynn, please.
Lynn, I'm glad you mentioned that internal audience and clientele, because this is something we've mentioned this year, last year, the year before. And we struggle. Some days we struggle because we don't have time. We just don't have time to figure out what are we doing this week to tell our local clients and business partners what's great about Gallatin, or what we're doing, or what problem we're trying to solve. And we talked, James and Jasmine and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, trying to figure out a way to be better on social media with Instagram and video clips, and just weekly, even if they're just 20-second video or live updates, because people respond to videos more than they do to words. They respond to pictures more than they do to just words. So yes, this is a consistent challenge for this office.
And please don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing in any way. I mean, I know you guys are super busy.
We did not. I don't know. You are singing to the choir on this one. We agree with you. We've talked about this. I'm not hurting anybody's feelings as far as I know. One thing I wanted to say, Jody, a couple of things real quick before they pass by and we've missed an opportunity. Yes, our population is probably at about 43,000 and growing. Here's something that's very scary, folks. Right now, the city of Gallatin is only responding to the census at about a 63% rate. Right now, if they shut down the census, we will have less population today than we did in 2010. Okay, that's a huge chunk of money. They were going to extend the census to the end of October. Now they're shortening it to the end of September. They are supposed to have door knockers starting next week in Gallatin specific and other places. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that's a call to your congressman, your US senator, but the city will lose a significant amount of money if we don't get our census count close to what our actual population is. I don't know how we deal with that.
When she says a significant amount of money, we're talking millions of dollars annually that the city will lack.
And we're talking about companies, everything from retail all the way up to the corporate clients that we're talking about, who wouldn't even look at Gallatin because there is some magic number out there that all of a sudden we're not hitting anymore.
Is there something that we can do, I mean, even as an individual, write a letter to the editor, or, what can we do to help?
Whatever you can on your social media pages. I don't care where they live, preferably they live in Gallatin and will answer the census here. But there is an urgency now, and they may not care about congressional and city council districting. They may not care about money for firefighters and police, healthcare. What they probably are going to hit home with most is, if you don't answer the census, we're going to have to find a way to fund the budget somehow. And I'm not saying the city council would approve a tax increase, but I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, people tend to react to, we're going to lose millions of dollars if you don't answer this. That's just my opinion. That you may have a different one.
We can get definitely the churches to kind of do a push on that to complete the census. I'm curious, and I think we need to do everything we can. How do we look compared to everyone else? Because I'm assuming COVID has affected that like it has everything else. and compare it to the speaking, what does it look like in the other? Have you got any kind of feedback there?
Yeah, if y'all want to chat for a minute, let me call up something and show you what we look at on a daily basis. It also affects like nonprofits, churches funding, the colleges funding. I don't know, you know, who else on here that would be affected, but y'all want to chat about something else, I'll call up a map and show it to you in just a minute.
Chat amongst yourselves.
Yes.
You have something?
Talk amongst yourselves. No big whoop. Well, I mean, what I'm getting from folks about this is that nowhere is getting counted the way any census has ever been counted before. Just because, like you're saying, the door-to-door canvassing has been the way that we ensured an accurate count in you know, back to the 1800s. And so with what we're working with now, we're really hamstrung. And so it's going to be, like you say, Rosemary, really interesting to see, you know, how much different communities are showing up and being able to be counted in ways that they can. I mean, I sent back in my thing I got in the mail. They called me back for a follow-up, and I don't know who else has been able to get at that. So what do we got here? Oh yeah.
Man, they don't like the census in Alaska.
You're muted. You're muted, Rosemary. Rosemary, you're muted.
Rosemary, you're muted. Oh, she knows. Okay.
Unmute. Okay. Got me? Okay. So Alaska
Gotcha.
is at a 49.5% response rate. Very bad. Tennessee is at 62.3. The darker blue, the more responses. I have to select a state first. The census tract that the Shalom zone is in had been yellow for a couple, 3 months until this past weekend. It finally turned light blue. So you can see this is Davidson County, and they're at 59.9. Sumner has a pretty good response rate for the county, almost 70%. Let me show you the city.
I'm glad to hear we turned the corner, because it's been a joint effort with everybody. You know, it's not just one thing.
So this is the city of Gallatin. We're at 63.2. One thing I want you to see on this is the actual city limits. But then we have to look at census tracts, and this is where the city has been focusing its efforts, is on the hard to count tracts. You'll notice that the census tract area is bigger than the city. It's different from the city limits. But this actually is at 50.2%. It was light blue yesterday. I don't know why it's yellow today. Okay. This is our most responsive area of response, 77.3, but it ranges from 50% to 59%. But overall, we're just not doing well. I'll go back to the city. So that just gives you an idea of where we are today with 2 months, less than 2 months to go.
Hey, Rosemary, when you did the special census before, back in like 2014, 2015, how successful was the door-to-door, and how is COVID going to affect door-to-door?
When we did the special census, the door-to-door by the firefighters is what put us over the top. If they had not gone door-to-door, we would not have increased our population by a significant enough amount to make it worth it. As it was, you know, we generated $2.5 million over the next 5 years. Right now, each person, the population is, we get $145 per person this year. Now, We can't do that with the US Census. We can't send our people door to door. They will not give us addresses of people who have not responded. Again, they are supposed to be in Gallatin starting next week, going door to door, and the city is going to do a knock knock campaign where you don't want them knocking on your door. That's where we are. I didn't mean to, take us down a rabbit trail, but I want you to be aware, if this doesn't improve, it affects our funding, and as Lynn, I think, said, our ability to prove to prospects, well, we really do have 43,000 people, we promise. It's just that dang COVID last year screwed us, So.
When they go door to door, can they take iPads or something with them and give people the opportunity to do it right then and there? I mean, it doesn't take very long to do.
No, the way they've explained it to us, that's exactly what they do. They go door to door, and then they actually will put in the information for that person. We are doing that when we have some events at City Hall and out in off Blythe Street. We have iPads, and we're just asking the people questions, and we're typing in the answers for them. So, but that's what the census workers will be doing.
I have a question. I responded, but I don't remember if it was written or it was electronically. I mean, how was the request to respond go out? Was it a letter that was sent that you responded to, because everybody doesn't have access to computers?
The first rounds were postcards and letters for online or phone in, and then after about a month or so, every household that had not responded was mailed the traditional fill-in form with a postage paid envelope.
Okay.
Tom, if my experience is any indication, that they will badger you until you've responded. So I filled out my piece online, got phone calls back, and followed up. And when I finally returned their phone call, the communication back from them has stopped. So I think they've said that they've counted my house.
Yeah. Well, I responded right away. I just didn't remember how it was done. But so is the city going to send out the census takers?
No, the U.S. government Census Bureau does that.
Oh me.
What could go wrong, right, Tom?
Yeah, what could go wrong? They could send out AT&T, because I was out of service for 3 days. Don't send them either.
I do know they had a training last night, because I've heard from 3 people. One's on my board and one's a volunteer. They had training last night, and 3 of them were there. So they are gearing up to do that door-to-door thing.
Hey, Jody, I wanted to share one more thing. It has nothing to do with the census. And when we were talking about property, one more idea I wanted to throw you out because of experience we had this weekend. We had a film crew from Nashville in Gallatin all day Sunday and all day Monday. They loved Gallatin. They went everywhere from downtown to Triple Creek Park to Vol State to the bridge over the Cumberland River, the marina. They love Gallatin. The woman who owns the company moved it here from California several years ago, was renting space in the Marathon building in Nashville. The lease was expiring, COVID hit, they decided to work from home, and now she's looking for space for that business. And they had a small crew of 12 people here on Monday. She loved the downtown. She wanted to know if there was space there. She liked another couple of other buildings. I say that to throw out the idea to consider of in acquiring properties for offices. Some of these folks are trending toward the funkier, more downtown, access to restaurants, coffee shops. We even have a new barber shop on the square that is really cool. So is it far-fetched to think that the city would try to acquire property next to the square for some cool office space with I'm just throwing that out, and then I'm done with the property conversation.
Well, we have some. I don't know if there's any available in the old Southern building. I don't know if they have empty spaces there or not. You know what I'm talking about? You know, yeah. Do they have any empty office space? I mean, that was very successful, apparently.
I think one of the things too we can inject into this conversation is the fact that that is in an opportunity zone. And it might be an opportunity for us to put a P3 together, a public-private partnership to, and there is a beautiful building down there, whatever the Worthington Galleries was in. Is that the one you're referring to, Tom?
Right on the corner there, yeah.
Well, it's right there in the middle of the square, so yeah.
No, this was in the corner down there.
Yeah, I think Tom's talking about the one where Dwayne's office is. Dwayne, are you in 106 Public Square?
He is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's a successful space. I think it's full.
It is. Mm-hmm.
So it's been very popular.
And the same developer is doing another one, right, in the old Antiques on Main building.
Yeah, you're right, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's Clay Haynes, right?
Right. He going to make that office space?
I think it was thinking that there are a couple of blighted blocks off the square, but near, that might be an opportunity for us, is where I was going with that.
There will be a considerable amount of investment as they start putting up the new courthouse. That's another $100 million that will be injected into the downtown area also.
I like that idea of looking at space on the square, especially when you think about what kind of came of East Nashville, and we have some cute neighborhoods that are very near the square, that are within walking distance of the square, where they're taking these homes and, you know, just really revitalizing them, turning them into just, I hate to use the term East Nashville, but I think everybody knows what I mean when I say that those little neighborhoods around the square are very popular for young families. They're affordable, and they are very near the square. And I think by us putting something, some money into an opportunity zone also speaks to owning some of the heart of the city a little bit. I think that
exactly.
The heart of the city stays vibrant, then the rest of the community can stay vibrant. So I really like the idea of pursuing that.
And you've got your whole live, work, play all in a small area kind of appeal, right? That's definitely marketable. Right? And it also shows that we care about the community, you know, reinvesting in, you know, the urban core, so to speak, of Gallatin.
I'm not sure the Gallatin's downtown fits what I had in my mind as urban core, but yeah, I think that's that return to downtown. I mean, you guys go to, I mean, pick your town your size in Tennessee, and you know there are precious few that have the sort of, I mean, plunking $100 million into the courthouse is not what you see across most of our state. So let's shift gears a little bit into sort of the present. We poked around the idea of our lives living with COVID now and how that's impacted us, and sort of the implications for economic development. Now, again, I mean, Gallatin may be the blueberry in the bowl of tomato soup that stands out amongst everybody else in terms of kind of how things have gone for you guys in this economy. But I just want to kind of spin this conversation a little bit to, you know, what's on the horizon, what's emerging that's happening now that's going to have an impact on what James and Jasmine and Rosemary and the team are working on over the next year or couple of years.
Well, I think the biggest problem remaining, and always has been, transportation. you know, just gets more and more and more crowded, and there's all kinds of entities working on it, but there doesn't seem to be any solution. And when was Hatton Track open? Don't we have the czar of Hatton Track?
Oh, yeah. Woo! I am expecting the end date is being pushed into fall, maybe winter of 2021. We are close to starting construction over the railroad crossing, which is the biggie.
What do we know what the completion date is for 109 to 40?
It's about the same time, I think. It was supposed to have been the end of last year, but obviously not. So the last update, they send us quarterly updates, and it's looking like it's going to be middle to end of 2021 as well. Now, I'm giving you the pessimist road construction manager point of view. EDOT may give you a more positive earlier than that point of view.
Right. Okay. One of the questions I had, do we expect any auxiliary sort of companies to follow the new arrival?
Great question. I have broached that subject with them, and until they made it public, they were, and that they were coming, they have been hesitant to share because they know I was going to call them right away. So I think, again, that'll be one of those things like next week, then they'll be able to actually tell me who normally follows them to places like this. And they will, trust me. Dwayne, you're spot on there. That's exactly who I'll be on the phone calling.
Okay.
Would it make sense to look into other areas of who have potentially followed to the other data centers that they've built or are building in other areas of the country?
Yeah, that's what we're referring to here. Is they will tell me next week who follows them.
Got it.
Like I said, just been hesitant because they knew I was going to call them right away. They didn't want me doing that.
And I would imagine that you might not have to make as many of those calls as might be coming into you as people want to sidle up close to the folks coming in.
Wouldn't that be nice?
So how much property is the 50 acres we own is close to that property, isn't it?
Yes, we have 30 acres, and it is
30.
right there.
Yeah.
To that.
Well, that's great.
And as you were right earlier, Tom, when you said we're probably not in the we're not out hunting any more data centers. We've done that. We've got a co-location and a hyperscale user, and because of the volume of utilities that are needed, we're done chasing data centers. We just used that to put us on the map, and I think the fact that we do have a co-location is very important because companies, large companies will be coming to end up in that building. It'll give us a chance to have those conversations. And like you said earlier, we do have the ability for some of these other companies to come in and out of here easily. So I do think that the future, we have so many upsides here. It's just making sure we're focused and we have some property.
So I suppose the purpose of this meeting is to decide what we are chasing.
Yep.
I think it was mentioned at one point that Archer has first right on that 30 acres. Is that still the case? And has that discussion been had with them?
It is still the case. I don't know how much longer. I'm not sure. I think we just got a few months left on that. I have not had a conversation with him about it because we haven't had a real strong person, company looking at it. We did have a site visit last week from Project Hummingbird that wants to put up a 400,000 square foot building. And at this point in time, and they were aware of the wage restraints that are on there. And we'll find out by the end of this week if we are still in the hunt on that one. And if we are, then I will go to Jordan and ask him about this. I think his eyes were bigger in his stomach when he started this. This was the first time he'd gone out and done this. And so I'm envisioning that it won't be a difficult conversation if we have a really strong prospect.
Jody, I think when we came back from break, were you talking about talent and workforce issues? Is that where we started?
I think we're always talking about that. And, I got the sense that because of the sort of prospects that are coming in, because you all have invested in building that secondary to higher ed to workforce pipeline, that a lot of those things are going well. But I know that the folks coming in have a pretty high number of folks are going to want to hire. And I think some of that ties into what Tom was talking about, that the transit, because I imagine there's not going to be that number of people living in Gallatin who are going to be working there. There's going to be a lot of across the county's transportation coming through there. But how are y'all kind of making that sustainable, that pipeline sustainable was kind of where I was going. But I feel like I got a pretty good answer based on what you guys have in motion right now. As well as the fact that it's shown an uptick in sort of the level of awareness and again, kind of connecting the dots from people from when they are in school all the way up until somewhere.
The Nashville Business Journal day before yesterday, posted a story about Nashville's tech employment grew by 30%. And they were bolstered by out-of-town workers and a high concentration of millennials. I think that how it ties in, but also anecdotally, the company that was here filming who's looking for a building, one of the things they loved is they're living in Nashville, but they loved that they could get here quickly in the morning and get home quickly in the afternoon. So I don't know how, I feel like this is part of our marketing challenge, is to market ourselves to that tech talent in Nashville and increasing our partnership marketing with Vol State and all the tech work that they do, the Apprentice TN program. That started, COVID hit, we had this big project and we never really made a big blast about the Apprentice program starting at Vol State. So I'm throwing that out there for discussion.
Can you guys give us again what the outgoing workforce looks like daily and the incoming, that number?
Are you talking about traffic pattern, Dwayne?
Traffic, yeah. There's a number. How many people leave Gallatin to work on a daily basis? How many are coming in?
James, you're muted.
Dwayne, I'm going to look that up right now. I got a website that I can go to that tells us that. So give me a couple minutes and I'll be back with that.
Okay. The discussion about telling our story, I think that was part of one of the strategies that we talked about putting a focus on. I think we continue to, of course, maybe next week's announcements helps that, but you just keep being reconfirmed of people that don't know the story. I mean, they literally, I didn't realize it was here. I didn't, just so that just says a lot of times we get tired of that before the audience we're trying to tell that to. So we just I think we gotta have a deliberate intentionality to just stay the course with that so that you get the benefit.
According to the Census Bureau, in 2017, which is the latest count we have 18,900 people that drive into Gallatin for work and 11,780 that leave Gallatin for work. So, I mean, that's we're very, very fortunate. We are kind of the employment hub for the Northeast quadrant of the Nashville MSA.
So it's 19,000 coming in every day.
Yes.
Then heading back out. Okay.
So yeah, they have we roughly have 23,400 jobs in the area, and that's for all different kinds.
Do you have any idea of which direction they're coming from Nashville or 109 or down 31 or down, which way is it?
This does not tell us exactly where they're coming from, but anecdotally, I can certainly tell you that it's bumper to bumper traffic on 31E coming in every morning. It's bumper to bumper traffic coming in on 25 from the east every morning. I drive up out of Nashville every morning, and although there's a steady stream, there's not a ton of people. I mean, 386, I can hammer down all the way, so they're not coming from that direction. I do know a couple of years when the Gap had to bump up their employment, they were really surprised at how many people they grabbed from Hendersonville that were driving up this way. And I think that that's an area that we have a chance.
Excuse me, there are a lot coming down 31 because if I try to get out in the morning, the traffic's just tremendous. And also down 25 coming from the Hartsville, the traffic's just tremendous. And likewise in the evening returning, and I'm sure probably 109 coming across the bridge is probably the same way.
Larry, I think you had your hand up there for a minute.
Yes, I wanted to mention about telling our story. I retired and moved here 5 years ago, and part of retirement for me is playing a lot of golf. So I've been playing golf at Fairview and Bluegrass and meeting a lot of new people. And I always ask them, what brought you here to Gallatin or Hendersonville? And they say, we look and say, what's available for lakes, what's available for golf courses, what's available for good communities on Google. And Jasmine, you may know, but how you do that for business to say, here's what we have to offer you. Just the way we could communicate what we have, the same way the people who are moving here are finding out about us.
I think that you make a good point. Internally, when we were talking yesterday about how we're going to tell our story, honestly, to be transparent, I think where James and I and Rosemary have struggled and why we were going to hire a PR firm is not knowing. We know how to promote, but it's the what. What content do we promote? What do we need to utilize in order to bring people here? So I think you make a good point, and that's useful information for us to know, okay, it's golf courses. People are looking for golf courses. That helps us to build content on our social media and even added it to our website. So that's one thing that brings people here. That's a message that we could get out.
A couple years ago, there was business, industry, nonprofits, there was whoever that had professional videos done. And those kind of went by the wayside. They were commercials for the business and industry, but I believe, Rosemary, the county had those on their website. And those are still very viable if there's a way that we could use those to tell our story other than just a compact little whatever. Those were, I know we paid a lot of money to have that done, and it still is very viable. It's on our webpage. People can see it, and it was done very well. But I think, like Larry said, the other thing that I think is really effective, and I sold my lake house, is a drone. you know, a drone view of our city, showing the square, showing and it's not that you don't know what to do. It is the expense and it's the focus of it. But again, the lake, the golf courses, all of the things that we have here in the square. So, but I don't know if some of those past videos could be utilized or not, but that's just a thought.
But another thing is that the fact that if we could reach out to corporate headquarters, looking to downsize, looking to come to a lake, looking to come to a community that has the golf courses and waterfront, you know, think Gallatin.
PJ, I like your idea, and you're exactly right, Larry. Couple of the trainings or webinars that we've been on during COVID have had to do with virtual tours of a building or a city or an area of town. It might be something specific we do to a prospect request, or it might be just an overall video of the city that, you know, we send out like a cold call. And I think James can share a little bit more about that. But we were saying yesterday, we've got to think of the new now. And it's not going to be people flying in for a site visit and tramping over the ground all huddled together asking questions. So James, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, interesting that, you know, the timing on this. I've actually been emailing back and forth with a company that what they do is they go out with one of those 360 cameras and they take pictures, and then you can load it on a set of virtual reality goggles, and you ship the goggles to your prospect, and you can have them play that and you looking at it at the same time and talk them through what you have in the area. So I'm looking into that right now. I was hoping to have that pair of goggles actually here today as we were having this conversation to be part of that. So yes, PJ, that's exactly right. There will be some expense, but that's really what's happening now. And I know Jody's run into this, you know, virtual tours are what they're doing out there now. That is the way it's being done. So we may have to invest in the technology, meaning a camera of some kind that will allow us to be on the front end of that, and allows us to, like Larry says, send out a link, send out a video, send out whatever that says, here it is, kind of thing.
I think the drone idea is great because you could show everything in short order. The downtown, you could show the airport, show our business district, show the lakeside communities we have, the golf courses we have, the city parks we have. 15 minutes, everything anybody would be interested in, I think. And you could only do that with a drone that would cover all those various sites that anybody would be interested in.
You sound like you want my job, Tom.
No, I don't want any job. I'll retire.
I will throw in here that this crew that was in town creating a video that hopefully we will see next week at some point. If the final product is in any way representative of what they shot, that is going to tell a tremendous story about Gallatin. And we need to capitalize on that moment and the few days after that. And this again comes back to where we get a little stuck because we're not masters at doing Google ads or setting the parameters of who's going to get to see it, or we could probably become really good at it, but is that really what we want to have somebody spend most of their time on when we're still we have RFIs coming in, and then we're going to have we have projects under construction. We need to help them. We need to talk to our existing industries again as things have calmed down and make sure we're meeting their needs. So that comes back to where we get stuck with our messaging. what are the best bangs for our buck to get it out? Quite honestly, mostly social media wise.
Can you look at perhaps even an unpaid internship at Ball State that might give some credit hours to some vibrant youth who would love to help promote and get involved in some social media on behalf of the city, get some credit hours as a result of it, not paid, but.
Vol State offers a social media for business course.
Wow.
Have that enthusiastic youth take that course, okay, and then put them to work. And I believe part of that course is actually designing a social media plan for a organization or industry or something else. So they could, as part of their coursework, design a plan for Gallatin ECD and then implement that plan.
How do we get in touch with the teacher and get us rolling on that? That's
well, I'm making myself a note right now, James.
Thank you.
I would say this. I think the last statistics I saw, 7 out of 10 folks are on Facebook. So you can't afford not to be on it. If 70% of folks are on it, you can't afford not to be there. We can't, I guess.
And I think the one platform where we are way behind, in my opinion, is LinkedIn. I still don't quite understand LinkedIn. Whenever we go to professional economic development conferences or seminars or trainings, you need to be on LinkedIn and you need to have a paid account and you need to pay attention to your LinkedIn and update it. That's probably the one we pay attention to the absolute least.
Yeah, people tend to think of LinkedIn as a static thing. You know, you've got a page up there, but no, really, it is much more. It should be much more dynamic than that. I would agree with you on that, Rosemary. Yeah. I mean, it is the business to business social media platform. Right?
I always look at that being more for individuals than for businesses. For individuals are trying to.
Well, it's moving in the direction of more business to business as well as individual.
Really?
I've noticed recently that I'm getting quite a few connection requests, and when I look at that person's company, I'm like, oh, might that have to do with some news that's been floating out around there, and now they want to hook into Gallatin because Gallatin's getting a little bit of publicity.
That is exactly it. They are building their network in case they feel the need to move in our direction. Yes.
The majority of people on LinkedIn individually these days are looking for jobs. It's become a great source for recruiters and headhunters as well as job seekers looking for stuff out there. And if you look at sort of the traffic and the activity, I think I heard somebody say that it's more static, and I think that's an accurate representation. It doesn't have the same sort of back and forth you see on Facebook and Instagram or even Twitter. But it's sadly, you can't afford not to be on any of those because you never know where the next lead is coming from. I'll further note that that not being as present on all those has not necessarily hurt your fortunes in this. There's enough that's going on in kind of doing the work and recruiting jobs and recruiting capital investment and building the economy and the population that you guys have not been hamstrung by that. Third point I'll make is that even an intern, even unpaid staff working on a project still requires somebody to manage it. And last I checked, the huge staff of Gallatin EDA is running pretty fast and hot right now. So again, I love that we want to kind of pedal to the metal on marketing, but then just as in this conversation, what we've heard over and over that we would love to get at telling our story and buying land and building the workforce, but in the meantime, there's prospects out there. There's job growth that's happening, largely because of the efforts that we've got in motion. I don't say that to say, oh, be complacent, rest on your laurels, y'all are good. But just that as you kind of look at the priorities of what you're working on, how do you make the case for something like that jumping up over some of the other activities that you've already got in motion? So I'm done with that.
We've been very successful in attracting restaurants and small business ventures, and I think they base that mostly on the traffic patterns and also the income levels. So they kind of self-recruit based on other information, and we've been very successful in attracting that. And of course, they pay sales taxes and real estate taxes and all kinds of things, which is good for the city too. That's also good for the city. And I don't know, James, I guess, gets involved in that with everybody's always looking for a better class restaurant in the Gallatin area and wanting to know why we can't attract this restaurant or that restaurant. But they have their own criteria for where they're going to come, traffic and how much money's floating around in the community before they build a restaurant. But I think we've been very successful in that area.
Yeah, you're accurate there, Tom. We have, and that's another reason why this census that was mentioned earlier is vital. It is just absolutely vital. If we don't have those numbers, regardless of what's actually on the ground, if they aren't official, it's not gonna, they just won't come here. One of the things too about Project Woolhawk that we haven't really discussed is that there's going to be 12 to 1,400 construction workers here for the next 6 years. And just that kind of an injection, just an overnight injection of that number of people is going to have a positive impact on us. We've got one of the subcontractors that have been in here. They need to hire 400 electricians. 400 electricians. There aren't 400 electricians in all of Middle Tennessee that don't have a job right now. So one of the things is they're going to have to start making those electricians. Literally.
Where are they going to live? Are they going to live in hotels and motels? All those construction workers. Are they
some of them will. Some of them will get apartments. I know that the gentleman that's heading up the electrical subcontractor has already bought a house in the area. So they've had people that are moving into the area that are going to be here. Again, some of them for at least 6 years. So that's going to impact our real estate market and our rental.
How's the apartment market right now? Are there a lot of vacancies, or is there still a large demand for apartments? That was kind of included in that survey of Gallatin, whether you would favor more apartments or not.
Right. So, some of the brand new ones up on Harris Lane, you drive by there and they're maybe 30-40% full, so it takes, a couple years for those to ramp up. But there clearly is still a demand because we've got another company that's going to be putting in another apartment complex right down there off Cage's Bend behind the new assisted living facility. They're going ahead and moving forward with putting up additional apartments. So
across from NHC, you mean?
No, the new one that's going in down right there.
Oh, okay, yeah. By the Kroger store, across where the nursery used to be.
Correct.
There's an apartment complex going in there also.
Yes, yes. So the demand must still be there because banks aren't going to lend if there's not a demand. That's one of the things that's really hard for people to understand, that there is a demand for that.
What about off of Bly Street? Isn't there an apartment complex going in there?
Yes.
PJ, you could probably know.
Yes, they're kind of at a standstill, I think, right now.
PJ, that wasn't an apartment complex, so
It was
that's a
houses.
family home
Housing.
development. Yeah.
Family house.
You know, one thing I worry about with all of this, whether it's the marketing or the housing or Wilhock coming, is the sustainability. And, you know, I had somebody this week just really frustrated with the planning department in the city and not being able to maneuver through the system. And, you know, I think that that really worries me because that gives people a bad taste in their mouth about our city and about being here. And, you know, that on the negative side worries me. But, you know, we've got to be able to sustain whatever we're doing, whatever, whether it's, you know, James getting a marketing person in there, or because, you know, Ball State, an internship, that's a nice little package. They did a study for us, and it was so intensive. There was no way I could carry it out. It was very impressive, but there was no way. You would have needed a full-time person, and I think if you use them, that's what you're going to see. And you know, I don't know where money would come from that, but it's, you know, it's kind of like, again, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So, you know, I just think we need to continue to think about anything that we plan, how is it going to be sustained? Because you don't want people here loving Gallatin and then all of a sudden they have an experience like I talked with somebody yesterday, and it was not good.
Can you share what the difficult experience was?
Well,
Get
sure.
permits.
They
Yeah,
had,
get permits.
well, it was not just the permits. Now they've changed the permit. You have to be certified, and, you know, the city has taken away the gas from the planning department. Now is doing gas permits, whereas the gas department used to do it. And it's just, and then you have to be certified. And so the guys go out and they're not certified and they haven't been told, or, you know, it's their construction and they, you know, they didn't know everything. And so it's just been a hot mess because there's been about 5 trips made to that house to just get the gas hooked up. So it finally happened, but, you know, I just think that there needs to be more, you know, I don't know how, and I know that's not our bailiwick, but again, that sustainability piece, I just want people to be able to maneuver through our systems when they get here, whether it's banking, whether it's the college, whether it's everybody involved on here, you know, that they can access things and get through the system. I think that's important too, especially with an implosion that's going to be happening. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree with that. I think as the company that we started grew too, it was important to set up those processes, and I kind of look at it as an onboarding process, making it as smooth as possible to bring, whether it's a company or whether it's individuals that are coming into town, you know, making it as smooth as possible for them to onboard to our city. And then also then managing that going forward. And I think the PR is just as important with the people, just as PJ said, that we've got to manage to that, not just sit back and let social media manage that, not let it self-manage, because I think that can get carried away fast. And I think we've got to push, we've got to champion that narrative throughout, not just set it and forget it.
Which I think that might even be a good project for Ball State for marketing. You know, here's where you get your gas, here's where you get your permit, here, you know, little, even just a 1-page instruction, because these people, you know, here's where the golf course is, here's where, whatever. And I know we have a big booklet that you all do that's beautiful, but if you're coming into the city, you're not going to sit down and look at that book while you're unloading boxes or whatever. So I don't know. I just want to see, and that might be something that Kim could take on at the chamber. I don't know, but I do think the onboarding process to get into the city, we need to make it as easy as we can. They already love our city. We know they love our city. So,
well, I also know the guy who teaches public relations class at Ball State, so I'll send him James's way too. James, I've already sent a couple emails on the social media class.
Thank you. And I'm surprised at us as an office that we haven't been thinking more about Ball State in these arenas. Because obviously Dr. Faulkner is at the table almost every single time we have a prospect come to town, but that's been on the training end of it. You know, I'm glad you're speaking up, Len. Thank you.
I've also heard it's more difficult to do business with the city. We're getting all the various permits and this, that, and the other. That's a complaint that's going around recently that we haven't experienced before, and you know that's not our. That is our business. It's not our business, and I don't know if the city.
Right.
I don't know if the city's aware of the reputation they're getting. For hard to
And
do
that's
business with.
an ongoing conversation here, Tom, and it's really interesting. We're getting that kind of commentary from the folks that have been here, that have grown up here, that have been doing business here for a long time. It's like we're getting so hard to work with, but then we get these outside folks that come in and they say, this is the easiest place we've ever had to work with.
Well, that's great.
There's those two different narratives. I think, yes, it is getting more difficult. I mean, not necessarily more difficult. It is becoming, you know, more rigid. You can't just go out and put up whatever you wanted to. I've got, you know, folks out in the industrial park that said, man, if I had to come here now, I wouldn't. But they've been here for 20 years. And they came, all they had to do was go, hey, I'm going to put up a building. The city went, okay, and walked away. Now it's not like that anymore. So I think we have to look at both sides of that narrative, Tom.
Bill McCord did.
It's valuable to have some kind of one-pager on our website. Now, I will say we can do the easiest, we can make it so easy and clickable and simple. But as I'm finding on social media, people are like, well, why didn't we hear about this? Okay, well, there have been 2 months of meetings. It's posted in the agendas that come out every Friday. The newspaper has run 4 stories. So I don't know why you didn't know about it. I guess you're not paying any attention to your world. You know? So we're still going to get those complaints because people just don't take time to make an effort to find information.
Yes. And this is true even if you had a $10 million PR budget and hired the best firm in the world. I mean, there's always going to be some people who are unreachable. Yes.
Well, Lynn, you've just really upped their budget.
This isn't an official meeting.
Do you have any idea, James? 10 million? Wow, I'm in.
Well, but the point is true, though. I mean, there's always people who are not going to hear.
Bill McCord, who is our head of our planning department, did about a year ago mention something along the lines of that he was going to have one of his staff start putting together a how to start a business guide that would work with all the departments on putting that together. I don't think that ever came to fruition, but he did plant that seed, and he just mentioned it one morning when he came in for coffee. So at one point it was on his radar. So Rosemary and James, I don't know if that's a conversation to circle back around to, but he sounded like pretty serious about it.
Well, and that's the thing.
Charles Alexander would already have something like that too.
Yeah, he would be a perfect fit, Jeannie.
It already exists, I think, with what Charles does. So maybe just getting a succinct recap of that we can hand out would make that simpler.
Ball State has someone for starting businesses.
I think that's who they were talking about, Tom. Charles Alexander.
Charles Alexander, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, I know he does focus on small businesses, so I don't know if he can, because I had him sit on a panel last week, and he came from the small business perspective. So I don't know if some of these larger corporations, if the process is different or if it applies to them. So I don't know, that might be another arena too.
Yeah, that Jasmine's right. His specialty is brand new small business development.
One of the things I'd like to throw out to everybody is if you have a friend or you run across somebody who is trying to start a business in Gallatin, I'm not, I can't help everybody with their residential issues, but James, this office, we're very successful at helping facilitate the internal process. We had a couple in last week that is looking to buy a fairly well-known building, and what they want to do there sounds fabulous, and I hope it comes to fruition. And they had done a lot of due diligence. I mean, they had a map of what they had to do in processes, but we were able to sit in on a couple of meetings and help ask some questions that we knew were possibilities and options for working quicker through the process and save them a bunch of time and possibly some money. So anytime you hear somebody trying to open a new business that needs guidance or is getting frustrated, don't hesitate to refer them to us so we can assist.
One of the things I talked to Jeannie about last week is succession planning. One of the things that's unfolding across the U.S. Is that a lot of businesses, existing businesses, small businesses especially, have not worked in a succession plan. And so you got a huge proportion of baby boomer business owners right now who have not planned, like Tim did, for kind of an exit. You know, what's going to happen to my business after we get after we're done with it. And so what happens is those businesses just kind of dissipate, or go through a very painful time of, you know, how do I transition to my kids or my partner or my wife or whoever is going to take over that business. And I think that's a thing that is the amount of money that's sort of not going to be accounted for in the next decade or so is measured in the trillions of dollars in baby boomer owned businesses. And so it's a thing I want to put on your radar. Jeannie and I were talking about a TVA webinar about they call it the silver tsunami. The people who are getting out of businesses but have not planned for what's going to happen to the business after I leave it as a business owner. And Jasmine, I know you're back on the job like one whole week now, but just again, just want to put that on your radar for kind of as you're having those conversations with folks out there. You know, what is the succession plan?
Jody, I actually was on that webinar also, and I've already contacted 3 or 4 of the local banks and talked to them about this. And we are going to be getting that group together to start that conversation. I also ordered the list of businesses here that are sole proprietors and publicly or privately owned, though, from that same group there. So yeah, we have started that. And like I said, we're going to start with the bankers, because one of the things I'm finding that they, only one of them really asks those questions when they're lending money. Is there a succession plan out there? And so all of them realize they need to be asking that question more often. So thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, that's something that's already on the docket here that we're working on.
Great.
I went to a great seminar 2 years ago, I think it was, at Baptist Healing Trust. And James or Rosemary, you might want to contact them. They have some great content on succession planning. And, you know, their big thing is you don't need to plan when you're leaving and you're going out the door. It needs to be done before. So we've gone through a very in-depth succession plan with, you know, completing a standard operating procedure and a personnel policy. You know, they were all in place, but they needed tweaked up. And so we have all that in place, but not that I'm going anywhere. But you know, I will someday. And so I don't want to do it as I go out the door. And James, I think what Baptist Healing Trust has developed is really good. And you could use what they haven't found on it. I'm sure they'd share with you.
That's a real problem because of the virus. And we see more and more in the hospitality business, particularly in restaurants and small businesses, that they're just, we're through and there's nobody to take their place. There's nobody in the family. They're just closing the business. And so we can't afford to stay in business anymore with the uncertainties of the future. And that's a real serious problem now. No successors.
So we're coming into our last half hour or so of being together, and I want to kind of give you all a chance to think about what we've talked about. and put down some ideas that we can kind of poke at and say, hey, here's where we really want some more energy directed. I mean, kind of like we did last year, and just see where the boards think that the EDA can kind of get the most traction in continuing forward on this. And what I want to do is I'm going to throw something up on the screen here, and give you all a chance just to kind of think on your own a little bit. This is a process called start, stop, continue. And what I've got up there is just a way to think about and look at what are the things that are happening around us. And then based on kind of what we're working on, are there things that the EDA needs to stop working on, things we need to start, and what do we continue? And you know, obviously there's if I look at sort of what's happened over the last year, continuous where a lot of things happen. I think we put some things on the board that would be stops and starts, but the continue really well, and you did great at it. So there's no complaints on that. But do want to give you all a chance just to think about that. So I've got some instructions up on the screen. If you just want to take kind of 5 minutes and either just pull out a piece of paper, or if you've got a word processor handy, just think about, you know, what are the things that you think James and Rosemary and Jasmine should stop and start and continue as they're going through this. And we'll kind of circle back in about 5 minutes and get you all to share what you've come up with. Just take a minute and kind of brainstorm through some of those things that are really top of mind for you, and things that you think are important for the organization moving forward. So I'll start us on 5 minutes, and we'll circle back in a second. Sorry, I don't have any clever music teed up for you all to think through this.
We can hear you, Leonard.
One of the things I have actually enjoyed about quarantine and COVID and doing all of our meetings like this is that little glimpse into other people's lives that you could never get in an office. You kind of get a sense of where people live and their pets and kids and whoever else they're hanging out with. And I've found myself looking at, you know, how is this for us? I get the sense of in our COVID times that we've there's a lot that's kind of working against us, and trying to see what's for us has revealed things like this, of like you get a better picture of who people are in their life outside of the corporate or office world.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone was thrilled to hear me opening my mail.
I think it's humanized everybody. Jody.
I concur 1,000%. I think because as I'm looking at, you know, all 12 or 15 of us in the little boxes, that human element is something I think we all are longing for. So. Okay, so let's get started, and I'll call on you guys. That might be a little more orderly than going through this. So let's hello. So let's start in the stops. And Ayumi, if you'll capture in mural, can you handle that on the post-it notes? Okay. Let's with Jeannie, you're the board chair. What have you got written down in your stop category? And let's do one idea at a time to start with.
That was the one category I could think of nothing. So I know that there is limited capacity where they are, but capacity as in the number of personnel, the number of hours in the day. It's just, you do a great job. I can't think of anything I would tell you not to do. I would hate to add to your workload. I did come up with a couple of starts and a couple of continues, but I honestly just drew a blank on the things to stop.
Well, and that's, I'll tell you, that is not unusual for organizations that are performing at a high level. And I'll tell you that the reason I do it in this order of stop, start, continue is that a lot of times we come up with things to start, but in, like you say, in like a resource constrained time when you just don't have enough people, enough bandwidth, that's why I like people to the first step being stop, so we can kind of make some room for other things. But thank you for your candor. I appreciate that. Dwayne, have you got anything in your stop category?
Nothing in the stop category.
Okay, it may be easier just to say who's got a stop. So if you've got a stop, raise your hand. Show me if you got something in there that you. Oh, Jeannie, okay.
James says he has a stop item. I want to hear what this is.
I've got a would like to stop, and that's responding to Freedom of Information Act requests. But I don't think
that's a good one.
You guys get a lot of those?
Oh, I'm not sure we even want to put that down, folks. I'll be honest with you. Yes, we do.
Say that again, please. I didn't hear that.
We've got I shouldn't have brought this up. We've got one person in particular that's wearing this office out right now.
Okay. And I can appreciate that. We talked about that actually at my team meeting this morning of people that are energy drainers, are time wasters, people that come in and change the whole attitude and the whole, you know, they can just make or break you in a small office setting where you have just one or two people that are coming in and creating extra work that's unnecessary, and throw your priorities off for the day and that sort of thing. So if you have that going on, maybe that's something that can be addressed, as far as how to address the time wasters in your life and being better able to prioritize things of importance.
Mm-hmm.
James, I heard you on FOIA, so I've taken that off. I understand the sensitivity around that. So anybody, any other stops out there? Again, just kind of raise a hand and we'll run through that. Y'all making this easy. Okay. So there's one. Tom, what do you got?
We'll stay
What's
stopped.
something they need to stop?
We'll just stay stopped on the labor-intensive industries and any more data centers. We'll stay stopped. I assume that's our intent.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So y'all have worked with me for long enough to know I can't operate without some sticky notes. So then this is how I've ported my work over into the online space. So let's jump over to the starts here, and I'll start with Alan. Are you still hanging? Looks like Alan's dropped off. How about Ryan? Ryan, I haven't heard a peep out of you today. You got anything for the cause here?
This is probably more of a continue. It's helping existing businesses grow.
Yeah, that is typically the bulk of the economic development world. Although ribbon cuttings and big announcements get all of the see part of that. The blocking and tackling really is that piece of it. And Jasmine, I can only imagine how happy businesses in Gallatin are to have you back in the saddle on that. So let's see. PJ, have you got anything for our starts there?
I do. I think we should start looking for land and make a decision on land. Continue, start, wherever you want to put it. And also succession planning for me, for that office, is really important. And I would also like to see them somehow financially be able to afford to increase their team. You know, I work on a small team, so I know what that's like. Very difficult. So I have the same amount of people in my office full time as they do. So there you go. That's it for me.
All right. Derek Jackson, I haven't heard a peep out of you either, brother. What you got anything starts here?
Let me see if I can. Yeah, I think I like the succession planning piece. Also, I would even like to suggest how do we look at connecting what some would consider those at-risk communities into the whole larger scheme of things, as a way of selling Gallatin continuously is different than other cities, even like ours. So, for example, what other cities around the country that have similar dynamics or a similar model to Gallatin? And what does Gallatin do or does that's different than others that connect what I often term the least and the last among us into the greater fabric of stuff? So how do we be more intentional in looking for ways to do that? That's a long preacher answer, so I'm sorry.
I think, can I get an amen from anybody out there?
Amen. Yeah.
Great. Larry, have you got anything for our start category here?
Actually, it's probably part of a stop too, but I want to stop trying to be influenced by negative people and start looking out for better mentors and people to help. That's done.
Indeed, I think we could talk about that across a lot of parts of our society these days.
Absolutely.
Lynn, I'm sure you have a start for us.
Actually, I believe my starts are covered. I wrote buying land, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And then my other one is another thing we've already talked about is continuing to, and I guess this counts as continuing to get the word out. But that's over in the blue area, so.
That's all right. Since we had precious few in the stops, we can kind of jump into this. And again, I do want to mind our time. We've got about 15 minutes left, so I want to get through those. So Jeannie, did you have some for the starts there?
Can't tell if Jeannie is talking or not. Her mouth is below the screen.
Sorry about that. I lost the screen actually, so I had to find you again. I don't have anything new to add other than maybe the working on the social media presence. I also had the succession planning for existing businesses that I think PJ already talked about. And I'm particularly interested in pursuing land purchase in the downtown area.
All right. Richie Harville, also quiet today. What you got anything for the cause here? Actually, looks like Richie's dropped off. How about Tom? You got anything to put into our start category there?
Absolutely. We need to get serious about some property acquisitions, both for corporate offices and also for manufacturing. That was on our last year's list, and we hadn't acquired any more property in either category. So I think that's very important. And there's already been mentioned social media, since most people use social media now as their main way of contact. And I think it's important we get some social media out there, and that can only be brought about maybe by I don't know, by hiring the publicity person. And as I understand it, the sales tax and the revenue for the city is held up real well and better than expected. So I don't know if they would be willing to review the possibility of us going ahead and employing a public relations person or not. I guess you could talk to the mayor or somebody on the council about the possibility of reviewing the budget since it's held up better and that was cut out to help us meet the budget. So I think we need to look at that possibility. And as far as continuing, I think it's great that Jasmine's back on the job because she does a fantastic job of keeping the existing industry happy. And of course, we need to continue to push the 109 and the Hatton track right now. You have to stay behind those. When I first moved back, we were working on 109, that's 20 years ago. And Hatton track, of course, is a new project, but if you don't stay behind those things, they don't get done. And I suppose that as far as continuing, we always have to be in concert with the city as to the availability of water, gas, sewer, and electricity. If we have any industries or prospects that are going to put a strain on any of those things, and I don't know, I'm sure James is aware of how we stand as for prospects that might require a lot of water, gas, sewer, electricity, which was certainly in the case in the last major prospect. But I don't know if the city has ample facilities to handle those things for us recruiting additional industry. Certainly it wouldn't affect corporate offices. That wouldn't be any big demand, but other industries might. I suppose we're up to par on looking at to the future for making sure we have that available.
That is one of the first questions we ask, again, because of the demands of data centers that are coming in. But the city really is in a good spot there, Tom. We're about 50% capacity in both water and sewer. So we're in good stead there. We've got several million gallons a day of excess capacity.
And the same applies to electrical service.
Fairly, I think, yeah, that's TVA that we're fine there. Our electrical department is actually doing a lot of upgrades right now throughout the city. And actually Project Woolhawk will be a direct feed from TVA, so that won't impact our capabilities there. So I think that's one of the reasons that we're successful as we are, Tom, is because we own our facilities and they are in really good shape.
You think there's a possibility the city might review the budget since they're doing better than expected?
That's something that the mayor has said from the beginning she hopes will happen. I think we need to get a couple, 3 more months into this before she might feel comfortable doing that. But yes, if the revenues continue to stay strong and everything looks good, yes, she does have the intention to revisit the budget.
Tim, do you have anything to add for the cause here in your starts or continues there?
Well, I think a lot of it's been touched upon. I want to echo just kind of what Tom said. I think it's the importance of the investment into the PR is an investment into that. The start of that is an investment into the future of Gallatin, but also that goes and continue as well because we need to maintain that. Again, can't set it and forget it. And I think that needs to be geared not only towards attracting new business that that fits within the corporate HQs and that kind of stuff, but also there needs to be a strong commitment to focusing that on our people, both new people moving in like we discussed, and then also existing. If we're gonna be up over 40,000 people living in the city and growing, and we're gonna have a lot of people coming and going over the next several years with some of these big projects going on. And so I think we need to manage the PR to our people living in our city as well, not just to the business sector.
just like to add one last thing to continue. We hit it pretty hard during our meeting, and Rosemary obviously is very passionate about the census. It would be a short-term priority, but if we just have a couple of months, then I think we need to put a lot of emphasis wherever we can. I think Dwayne maybe mentioned churches, civic groups, homeowners associations. I remember many years ago the old Easter seal approach, where you had one person in your community that was responsible for reaching out to some of the others. So just any way we can try and get that population up as high as possible. I'd like to see a little priority with that. Again, back to capacity. Where do you fit it all in?
Is someone in the city?
Well, and that's a part.
Someone in the city going to
Go ahead,
contact
Tom.
the newspaper and get an article on how important it is that we get a correct census, and how our funds received depend on the census count. I don't know if people understand that or not, that the amount of money we receive, and I think if they would understand that if we don't get an accurate count, we will be short on funds received from the state and the federal government. I don't know that people connect that or not.
Tom, I have already been communicating with Josh Cross at the Gallatin Neal,
Okay.
and giving him some data and dollar amounts.
Great.
I don't know how soon he's going to get to that, but certainly, hopefully within the next couple of 3 weeks. But he and I have been communicating about that. And the city also has a team, a core team of 4 people, me, Jeff Henschel, and Suzanne and Michaela in finance. And we have planned activities and events in the hard to count areas. And we're just doing our best. I think people are a little numb to the census right now because we started talking about it a year ago or more, but we are doing everything we know how to do. We're giving away snowballs and lunches, and just to get people and say, have you done it? Fill it out right now. So we're trying.
I know you are. Good job.
And I would say for everybody on the board, this is your job too. I mean, just the people you know, from the people who live next door to you, to you go to church with. I guess you got Sertoma or civic, or the different civic organizations you've got out there. So it's on you guys too. Just tell everybody you know. And I think that's that really, when we talk about marketing, that's the only marketing that really works, is that person to person, word of mouth thing. So if you all are out there advocating for this, the more people are talking about it, the more chance people are going to come around and realize how important this is. And Rosemary, thank you for bringing that up, because I had no idea that the numbers were as low as that. So we're down to our last few minutes here. Is there anything that you think we've missed out of this kind of list of things that we want to work on there? Because I mean, just listen to the conversation. There's 2 or 3 things that really kind of jump up to the top in all this for me as I've heard it. But want to make sure we hadn't missed anything on here as well.
Jamie, let me one thing I want to add, and I don't know if this is in the strategic piece, but I would like to see us maybe establish, for lack of better terms, kind of a key performance indicators for what we're talking real general, but if we could say, okay, this is what success looks like, and as a measurement. So like in last year where we had developed the workforce, we raised the average household income, did we do it or not? I mean, there's a number that says what it was before then, what is it now? If we're talking about, telling our story about it, even with the social media, I think we got to do that. And there are metrics that can say we're reaching X amount of folks. We did this, is how much we so we can pay someone to do that. But then there's metrics to say, here's what happened. So I think we ought to have something rather than just we didn't kind of opinion. It's black and white's a number that can tell us what the success was.
That's good. Sorry, I'm a planner, but I didn't plan well enough to bring my power supply for my computer, so I dropped off there for part of that, Dwayne. Sorry, but yeah, I think KPI. Generally when you're talking about KPIs and economic development, it's jobs and capital investment. But I think that as we're kind of looking at the commitments, that's what I was talking about. The things that kind of float to the top for me are really those pieces of the land. Supporting existing business sounds like is really important, and then pick up, kind of tell our story better, or continue to tell our story is the other piece of it. So
I like
with that,
I really like what Wayne said, and I think that's what I was actually kind of aiming at when we started this process today. When I said let's set the bar high, okay, let's figure out what it is that we want to accomplish, and like I said, set that bar high and make us work towards it, and we can let people know this is what we're trying to accomplish, and this is what we've done this year. This is how we've gotten there. Because one of the things, just in the 8 years I've been here, this office has been involved with the attraction of over 4,000 jobs. Okay, and then you look at the multipliers that came off of that, and that's another 5,000 or 6,000 jobs easily. And that's why our unemployment rate's gone from 7.9% to 3%. And the city's grown by, we were at 32,000 people when I got here, and we're at 43 now. But all those people who have come, they all have a job. And we've played a role in it. We haven't been specifically the only people that have done that, but we've played clearly an important role. So, Dwayne, yes, let's figure out how to put that out there. I know we can't figure that out in the next 3 minutes, but let's work on that.
And what I'll plan to do with this, James, is circle back with you and the team and refine this into what those kind of 2 or 3 things that you want to work on are. Because again, I mean, land acquisition has dominated the conversation today, but lots of ideas within that alone. So kind of refine that. I'll circle back with you and Rosemary and Jasmine and come up with something that's a little more digestible than what we've put out there today, and then turn that back over to the board, to the boards here in the next week or so.
Super.
And in being mindful of time, we're right at 11:30. So huge thanks to you all for everything you're doing to move, to move Gallatin forward. And James and Rosemary and Jasmine, just huge kudos for the work you guys have done and the success you're showing. Like you said, James, it's not something that just happens. It's you guys make it look like it's magic, but it's like that duck on the water, super smooth on the surface, but underneath it's really rolling. So you guys keep up the great work. And James or Jeannie, if you've got any sort of words of wisdom or parting as we're heading out today, please unmute and share.
I'd just like to say thank you, Jody, and thank all of you for spending part of your time, your morning with us. I think in spite of not being together, it turned out very successful. I was a little leery at first, but Jody, you did a great job keeping us on track, and I appreciate all of your time. It's a good meeting.
Well, nobody's more leery of that than me, Jeannie. So thank you.
Can we see the final graphic image?
Yes, absolutely. So Ayumi, will you share your screen and take a look at that?
Sure. I have 1.5, so I'll show the first one now.
Oh, wow.
I was right.
You guys got to frame that and put it in the office.
Wow.
I'd love to have a copy of that to study it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It'll definitely be a part of the report back.
That's so cool.
And I'll make sure to combine it with these two.
See, one of the great things about not just having Yumi doing it, but doing it digitally is that we can go back in and kind of clump some subjects together and move some things around, so it really makes a little more sense. As you all have seen the last 4 or 5 years, when you do it all on paper, you get what you get. So it'll be nice to come back with a little cleaned up version from that.
Very cool.
Awesome. Very cool. Good job. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thanks, y'all. Take care. Appreciate
right.
your time.
Bye.